Welcome back to another episode of SaaS Buyers Club. I'm here with Cory Blumenfeld. Hey, Cory, what's going on?
Excited to do this.
Awesome.
Excited to talk with my buddy. We got to know each other before this call, so excited to have a real business conversation, diving into some SaaS buying.
Yeah, so you are a founder. You've had some exits. Tell me a little bit about the previous companies that you've started.
I've gone through it all, the roller coaster of being an entrepreneur. I've started from doing driveway sealing to pay for college. I wouldn't call myself an entrepreneur at that point, to building tech businesses with no business in tech, no experience, no business background. I've done it 3 times now and I'm still learning. But every time that I start something new or something ends, I just have to jump back into building stuff. It's what keeps me going. But yeah, second business, mobile app. We sold that to hospitals across Canada, worked on that for 6 years, wound up selling that. I called that my MBA. And then my next business started out in medical tourism. We were going to take people to Turkey to get hair transplants. COVID happened, travel shut down. We wound up building software for financial advisors to help them better understand their clients' healthcare costs. And yeah, that was an amazing experience.
Cool. So the first software was selling to hospitals. It was a mobile app that you sold to hospitals. Is that right?
Yep,
And how long did you work on that for?
almost 7 years.
What was that journey like?
That was my first real experience into entrepreneurship. That journey was filled with a lot of failures, trying to understand what's my why. Maybe there were points where we should have just stopped working on it a lot earlier, but I joke around, and as I was saying before, that was my MBA. That's where I learned about business, about being focused, about building teams, about managing product, about setting goals, about being aligned as an entire team. That was, rather than going to 7 years of med school, I went to 7 years of entrepreneurship school.
Was that ever a
And
thing?
I enjoyed that a lot more. Yeah, I wanted to be a doctor. I thought I was going to be a doctor in my last year of university. And then I found entrepreneurship. I was doing it before, but I wouldn't call myself an entrepreneur
Yeah.
before that.
How did you go from wanting to be a doctor to all of a sudden starting a mobile app? How did that happen?
I mean, my whole life before building businesses, the traditional, I came from a very conservative traditional household. Either you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, or an accountant. You do those things first, you get a degree, and then once you have that piece of paper and you've proven to society you're worthy, then maybe you can start a business because you're at that point where you can do something. So that transition, I took a course on entrepreneurship. It was kind of like a bird course, which means it's a free grade. It gets you to your degree. And I just fell in love with the whole concept. I had a professor that came to me and he basically was like, "Cory, do you really want to be a doctor?" At that point, I thought I wanted to be a doctor, but he was like, "Well, you can make the same impact, and maybe you could even make more impact by building a business in the healthcare space." I was like, "Can I do that? Don't I need to be a doctor to do something in healthcare?" He's like, "Who told you that?" I'm like, "Well, every single person that I grew up with." So I didn't really grasp that at that point. I thought I needed to be this doctor. I thought I needed to go through those 7 years of med school. But what I learned from going through those 7 years of building a business in the healthcare space, I worked with the doctors. I learned how to speak to doctors. I learned how to build a business. I learned all these intangible things that have helped me on my road to building future businesses.
What did the app do?
The app. So basically what happens when you leave the hospital, you are given all these pieces of paper, probably back in the day. This was 10 years ago. You used to get all these papers. They would tell you need to do this. Don't get the cast wet. Here are all of your tasks. If an emergency happens, do that. And we just took all that information and we digitized that. So we created this kind of content creation platform for hospitals, health centers, primary care facilities, and they could take all that content and just digitize it and make it actionable for their patients.
It's like your discharge paperwork, for example, make sure you eat 5 oranges a day for the next 7 days or whatever.
Did you eat your oranges today?
I still have not eaten my oranges today. It'll be after the podcast.
Oh.
Yeah. So
But exactly. And I think one of the interesting things in that, building that business, I went in there with passion. I went into with an idea. of something that could help a lot of people. The problem was we didn't define the business model like from day one. And I think that was one of my biggest takeaways outside of focus. It's we didn't have this clear why and clear business model. We had this really cool thing that could help a lot of people. But towards the end, it was who's paying for this? And if we want to help a lot of people, there has to be something to sustain it. And so it was all great. It helped a lot of people. A lot of people used it, but we just didn't have that clear business model.
So you took this class in entrepreneurship. This professor was like, hey, do you really want to be a doctor? You could make so much more impact in entrepreneurship. How did you go from that to just like being like, okay, I want to launch a mobile app for hospitals where we digitize their content? What did that process look like?
That was probably a 3.5-year journey. I needed still at that point. So I was just graduating college and starting a business when you're just like right out of the gates. It's super difficult. Like when you don't have a tech background and you want to start a tech business, you need technical co-founders. It's really difficult to do it on your own. And there are ways to do it, but it's always good to have a really good tech founder. So I signed up for a master's just to kill some time, have that backup plan, at least to make my parents happy if I wanted to go and apply to med school. So I did this master's in health innovation. And within the first couple weeks, I was sitting in class. I guess I was very vocal in class in one of these health innovation classes. And someone approached me and said, we're doing a hackathon. Do you want to join us? We need someone to be more the business person. And my instinct said, here's my opportunity, take it. And did the hackathon. We won. We had to sleep in a hospital for like, I think it was 48 or 72 hours and just build this janky MVP, got it up and running. And yeah, the rest is history. It started everything.
So you said towards the end, you didn't have a business model. Did you ever like develop a business model where where you found the target customer that pays?
We found users. We had this mindset of if we build it, people will come. So one of the challenges in healthcare, and this might not be in every industry, it's finding a buyer. Nobody, at least this was from my experience. It's finding that organization or person that's willing to pay. We built this business in Canada, so that also changes things in terms of who the payer is. And we tried a bunch of things. So we thought we'd give it away for free. We'd bring advertisers on, but to bring advertisers, you need tons of users. Hospitals weren't willing to pay. We did sign some government contracts, but those weren't reoccurring. So I think the important takeaway for me was, not focusing on those one-off contracts. It's finding a model that isn't based on just the number of users and having to sell to advertisers, something that's not just these one-off contracts, but more focused on like reoccurring revenue. It's you start it, you can kind of forecast what's going to happen with the business, how big it can get, when you need to bring on additional resources. Just makes it more predictable. And at least for me, that's kind of the business that I wanted to build next.
But I hear that you didn't find that with that business. So you never did you ever find the person who ended up paying for the app? Did you find the user that paid or no?
In Canada, that was also the other thing. So like in Canada for that specific thing, a lot of competition, but no, we didn't find that continuous buyer. It was always one-off contracts, which is great, but that means you always need to be selling. Everything's custom. It's hard to build a product when everything is custom for a different customer you bring on. You're basically a consultant in a dev shop at that point, right?
Yeah.
So it makes it challenging to really focus.
But so it sounds like you took more of a freemium approach, or like just giving away the app for free to these hospitals just to onboard users, at least for a period of time. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what we started. Free to the hospital, free to the patient. And the whole idea was you bring enough patients on, you could do some advertising. And we did some advertising deals, but as fruitful as one would hope. And yeah, it's a whole thing in itself, like building an advertising system. And especially in healthcare, you have to be very cautious. And those who want to advertise to people coming out of the hospital they're not always the I would say the right customer that you want to build your brand around.
Sounds like the big learning lesson that you got from that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but your big takeaway from that experience was the importance of recurring revenue and how to like find clients, buyers, users that result in recurring revenue.
Recurring revenue, yep, and focus, right? Because every client that we did have wanted something a little different. So we wound up customizing a lot, and a lot of the product effort went into how do we support this customer? How do we give this customer what they want? But if you were to ask me what the why is, like what is that one thing that we really do really well? It was challenging to do that because we were so many different things to every one of our clients.
But you ended up getting an exit in that business, like an acquirer acquired you.
Yeah, towards the end, we started really figuring out what is it that we wanted to be. And that was the content management system. All these organizations had all this content, and really what they wanted was a system to manage it, to upload their content, to create content. We started looking at nonprofit organizations that were developing all this health related content, and so we started realizing, oh, we could create this platform that allowed them to manage it themselves. And we worked on that, we built it out, but at that point, it just made sense to hand it over to someone that could really take it to the next level, and that's what we
Yeah,
did.
you built it for like 7 years. At that point, it's isn't it funny how like after 7 years of kind of pushing this rock uphill, the moment or at least close to the moment that you found the pathway forward is like, okay, now let's hand it off. But it's like, man, where was someone who to take this thing, 7 years ago or through this entire journey? Yeah, how like, how did that feel handing it off? What was that like? How did you feel about did it feel good to be like, okay, well, we found the way now, and now we're gonna hand this thing off? Because I feel like I would be bitter. I would be like, after 7 years, I found the way, and now someone comes and wants this thing. Like I feel like I would be at least a little upset.
Honestly, like at that point, I was excited that I could see this live on. I think that's the most important thing. I don't know, when you're working on something for that long, I come back to like the biggest takeaway was the amount that I learned. And so towards the end, all I wanted was to make sure that the individuals that we were working with could be supported. And that's what we made sure of, that they'd still be able to go with the company and build it. And that we could see this thing we spent 7 years working on, basically your child, live on. And so that made me happy. Going through the process made me happy. It was a big validator. But I think for me, it's wow, I've learned so much in these 7 years. Imagine what I could do if I applied that to something else. And that's really what started to excite me. In my journey, I've never really taken a break. I've always gone on to the next thing. And I think for me, it's always the unknown and the next thing that excites me. So was I bitter? No, because it lived on.
Mm.
It wasn't like, hey, we're just shutting this thing down and laying off every single person. Every single person had an opportunity to go and work and continue to build upon the vision with a company that was well resourced.
How did the acquirer find you? Was it someone that you like, a partner that you had worked with or something like that?
Honestly, like I think this is one of the biggest challenges for a lot of smaller companies. It's like, how do you find the acquirer? How this went down is a lot of cold emails, a lot of conversations, a lot of referrals, a lot of introductions. One conversation led to another. And in this case, the acquirer basically said to us, okay, come back to me when you're ready. We were having a conversation, just shopping around the idea. They just raised a bunch of money. If you're ready, we'll make sure that the team's well taken care of and that we continue to build this. So I think this was just an early conversation. We weren't taking it serious at first. And we went back after going through the ringer of trying to figure out what are our options to keep this thing going. And eventually we closed the deal.
Yeah. So you wanted to sell at that point, it sounds like. It sounds like you were exploring the market for a buyer. And so you were having conversations around selling. You identified this potential acquirer, and you had an early initial conversation with them that resulted in you circling back and them actually ending up as the acquirer.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. So yeah, it's a long drawn out period. I think this was just when COVID was first taking off. So yeah, there was nothing in person. It was just a lot of trying to figure out, okay, what's going to happen in the ecosystem. Like Like everything's changing, investments were changing. There were a couple paths. We could get acquired, we could go raise more money. We felt that the best opportunity was to give this to another company to like really invest the money and time into building it out.
Mm.
Also, to be honest, we were tired at that point. 7 years on one thing, and it's your first business. It gets exhausting.
And for 7 years of wandering through the desert as well.
That's what it felt like, right? And another takeaway is just like really for me personally is like, what is that why? We were pivoting a lot. If I'm gonna get real, we were pivoting a lot until towards the end we found that why, this content management platform. But we were soul searching for a long time because we were trying to find that reoccurring model that was just easy. We didn't have to convince people to like believe in this vision that we had.
Mm. How much time went in between that first conversation with the potential acquirer to the time that they ended up acquiring you? How much time between those two?
I would say like 6 to 8 months. Like the first conversation we had wasn't even when we were thinking about selling. I think they had just raised capital and they were just, "Oh, if you ever are thinking of selling," they liked what we were building. They just floated that idea by
Gotcha.
us.
They cold emailed you.
No, we were having a conversation and they just floated that during the conversation. So it wasn't always a cold email. Maybe we got introduced to them. I don't remember exactly
Gotcha.
how the first conversation went down. Later on, we reached out to them and we're like, "Oh, well, you remember when you said this? Is that still an option?"
I talk to so many founders, and what I always tell them is founders are always like, "Oh, we get cold emails from so many VCs, from so many acquirers, from so many PE firms." And I'm like, "That's cool. Find a way to manage those conversations." That's why I'm digging into this with you, because I think it's really important. It really exemplifies to the founders that you don't know which conversation is going to result in the benefit to you. So for you, you had a conversation 6 months earlier. It was just a random conversation. You were able to circle back to that conversation and pick it up because some sort of a relationship had been built between you and that potential acquirer.
For sure.
Now, had you ignored that relationship, it may have looked different. So,
Exactly.
yeah, for the founders out there, those inquiries that you get about selling your business, find a way to manage those inquiries. Develop a system. On one of the previous podcasts, we've talked about putting them on a newsletter, for example, like reaching out to them like, "Hey, we don't want to sell right now, but maybe we can put you on this newsletter." Or develop a system to identify who the people are that you want to build a relationship with. So this is a perfect story to exemplify that. So thank you. That's awesome.
Yeah, no worries. And on this point, like I think something that I'm really focused on now, and which could have helped even more at that point, is this whole idea of building in public. Are you familiar with it? Have you like I see a lot of founders posting on Twitter, on LinkedIn, basically talking about everything they're doing, what success they've had, and that is such a great way for building these relationships. Like, oh, you hit the nail on the head. It's all relationships. Most likely, we were connected to this founder of that business via an introduction. It wasn't. I wouldn't say. I don't think it was a cold email. So we weren't doing cold emailing for this because a lot of times these conversations become real, or there's a higher likelihood of them becoming real when there is some relationship, as you were mentioning. But I think like building in public, it creates this sense that you already have a relationship with a potential investor or a potential acquirer. I'm really bullish on that right now.
I've always wanted to build in public, but like I get scared. And then,
Why?
well, like, so I'm like, okay, well, how much do I need to reveal? Do I need to like reveal what like my monthly revenue is? Do I need to reveal like how many leads I got? Like that? Like, I'm always like, okay, what aspect of building in public, like, do I need? How far do I take it? And then it scares me. I'm like, well, I don't want to share all that information with people. Like,
Are you familiar with the law of attraction?
I'm familiar with the law of attraction.
Share as much as you want to put out to the world, because the whole idea is to attract the people that you want to work with, right? So when you think about it, it's I don't go when I do post or when I share information, I'm sharing the information based on the people that I want to connect with. When I'm assuming the people that want to hear about, oh, here's how much revenue I made and blah blah blah, this is how big fast my business is growing. There's people that thrive on that. That's not the content that I post. I just post what I feel comfortable
Hmm.
with, and I think that that's good, right? So if you basically say, I don't want to post about this, or I don't want to share this much information, that's great. Share what you want to share, and you'll attract the people you want to attract.
So what's your approach to build it? How do you describe your framework for building in public?
Yeah, I was thinking about this a couple of days ago in terms of how I would explain it, and for me, I write everything the day
Mm.
before. So I'm posting every single day, but I have a conversation with someone the day before. Maybe I talk to someone in the business community and they give me some feedback or some advice, or there's something that just gets me fired up. I just share what I feel or my thoughts. I just use it as an outlet. So in terms of what I feel comfortable sharing, if there's a number, I'm happy sharing numbers. But I don't want to use it to talk about how amazing I am. I usually talk about how did I hit this number. So if let's say, for example, I'm talking about followers or how many meetings I've booked, it's more the how I got there. I'm not trying to sell that. So some folks will be like, well, you can only find out how I did this by signing up for my course. I'm not selling a course. So as I post more, as I share more, I'm getting more comfortable opening up about some like things that are going on in my life, but my goal is to always share how I made that happen or how other people can make that happen for themselves.
Hmm. So how would you define building in public?
Building in
Yeah,
public, like just in general, for
for you,
me,
for you.
I'm going to focus on
Yeah,
me because it's different to everyone.
absolutely.
For me, for me, building if I have a really good conversation, I leave this podcast and I'm like, this is what I would have done different the next time, or this is what I could have done better. That could have been a topic or something that I'd share. Maybe talking about my experience of finding as many podcasts I've done in the last couple of weeks. I've done a bunch of podcasts, maybe like 5 or 6. How have I found those opportunities? Why they're so beneficial? That could be content. Are you familiar? Like, did you watch Seinfeld growing up at
Hmm.
all? There's this famous episode, the pilot, and Jerry and George go and they're pitching to NBC, what they're writing about. And George is like, an episode, what did you do today? And then the guy at NBC, I got up, I went to work, blah blah blah, had a couple conversations. That's an episode. And so I think about that in terms of when I'm building in public, people are interested in just hearing this. The bottom line is they're thinking about how they can do it themselves. So pretty much anything, any conversation, anything I learn, anything that makes me feel better as a founder, as an entrepreneur, as an individual, that's open for discussion, at least for me.
Hmm.
I'm not going to get too personal about what's happening in my personal life. That's off limits. But tips, these tricks, these insights, these stories, talking about how I got posting and what started me on the journey, that's how I look at building in public.
Got it.
And the other thing is, like, it doesn't just have to be about the business. I think the most important thing is in terms of these relationships when we're doing business is all conversations, it's all relationships, and we want to build meaningful ones. So the more I share about how I think, not about the business that I'm working on, but what it's like to work with me, the more time people want to spend with me, the more people reach out to me to book meetings. So that's also I think about building in public, what it's like to work with me.
Cool. So I hear the kind of two primary principles behind building in public for you. The first one I would characterize as transparency in terms of these are the conversations I had today. This is what I learned. This is what I would have done different. I had this experience. Check this out. This experience that I had. Here's how I would do it better next time. Here's what I'm focusing on. These are the different kind of flavors or ingredients of building in public that you take into account with respect to transparency. And then the second one is here's what it's like to work with me. Here's what I'm about.
Exactly. And one of the cool things, if we're talking about SaaS and the buyers club and or just doing a full circle, it's made it so much easier to build relationships with customers, investors, and potential buyers. Like, my theory is again, it's a hypothesis, but by doing all this stuff, People are going to come and it's book meetings with me. Or when I reach out to them, they're going to say, oh, Cory, yeah, I know who you are. It's going to make it so much easier to get those meetings.
Yeah, so we had a previous guest on the podcast. Her name is Sharon Gillenwater. I don't know if you're connected with her. She's awesome. But she went viral on TikTok because she had an exit. It looked like you were going to say something. Are you connected with her? Yeah,
No,
she's awesome.
I have to chat.
Yeah, I'll introduce the two of you after this podcast. But she went viral on TikTok because after her exit, she started making a bunch of content where she was like, I had a $25 million exit. Here's how much I took home. Like, she was very transparent, like incredibly transparent in terms of here's how much went to the lawyers. Here's how much went to taxes. Here's how much went to XYZ. Here's how much literally went in my pocket. Like, and so she went super viral on TikTok because her willingness to be incredibly transparent with her experience in the exit just attracted a ton of people. And so she has continued that transparency on social media, documenting her journey post exit as she goes into the space of wanting to be thought leader, advisor. She built a media business. It was like a business intelligence platform, a SaaS business intelligence platform. And her whole point, which was very similar to your point, was because she was so transparent and because she got all this visibility and because she continued the transparency and the sharing very vulnerably and putting it all out there, the people that have found her are the investors, the acquirers, the partners, the people that want to build with her. It has attracted innumerable relationships to her. So there is a magneticness that definitely comes with building in public.
Exactly. It reminds me of my favorite quote from this book called The Alchemist. When you want something, the whole universe conspires into helping you achieve it. And I think that it relates to kind of the law of attraction, all of this stuff. Just as when you're transparent, when you put yourself out there, you'll attract the energy, the people, the things you want in life. And so I fully agree with this. That's why I would say in the past, I never did any of this stuff. And I'm only, recently starting and testing this stuff. So for me, it's a hypothesis, but it just makes complete sense.
So tell me about the hypothesis. What's the hypothesis?
My hypothesis is the more I put myself out there, the more transparent I am, the more authentic I am, the more I write, the more I share about my experiences, the more people will want to spend time with me, whether that's meeting with customers, whether that's signing contracts, whether that's just building really cool relationships, like kind of thinking about how we met. We met because I had been putting content out there. I created a group of like-minded individuals. Someone invited you to the group and said, hey, there's someone that fits what we're doing here. All of this, all the meetings that I've booked, meeting you would not have been possible without building in public, right? Or posting my life, my business life, and all these lessons. So yeah, it's simple as that. My hypothesis is launching a product's going to be easier with an audience. Raising money is going to be easier. Bringing on customers is going to be easier. Finding a reoccurring model, if we're going full circle again, is going to be a lot easier. Getting customer feedback easier. Customer discovery easier. Everything you need to do as a founder, it just becomes so much easier.
What was the origin of how you got to developing this hypothesis?
I saw what other folks were doing. Like, I saw a lot of people spending time online. I saw more people posting and sharing their stories. I think for me, just in general, in my previous companies, I was always I took more of like a behind the scenes approach. And so I was never front and center. And I knew for me, if I wanted to take the next leap to be front and center, to be the face of a business, to lead a business, I needed to put myself out there. And I thought, hey, the best way to do that is by posting. It's by writing more. So that was the first thing. It was really just to challenge myself to do something that I was uncomfortable with. As I did that more, and I started hearing all these gurus, whether they're right or wrong, it doesn't matter. But the fact is, as I started seeing what they were doing, and I started putting myself out there, people started to reach out to me and ask me for my time. They started to ask me about what I'm doing to make this work. And so in just a short period of time, there was all this validation coming to me, and I wasn't seeking it. in the past, when I used to want to find time to meet with people, it was just like such a challenge. I used to have to beg people to spend time with me.
Mm.
And in just this short period of time, it was so easy to start connecting with folks. Some really awesome folks.
How long ago did you start the journey?
3 months ago.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And in just 3 short months, talk to us about some of the results that you've seen from what you have embarked on.
Yeah. So initially, maybe like maybe month, so 4 months ago,
Okay.
I had on my list of goals. I wanted to post at least once a week. I want to be more active online. I just could never get around to it. It was such a challenge. So what I started doing was just commenting. I just started engaging on people's content and joining the conversation, and that worked. I saw my followers grow. I saw people reaching out to me. So that was really awesome. That started building the confidence. And then just one day, I said to myself, "Okay, I'm going to post something." And it was this really, I don't even remember what it was. It's pretty crappy. I used ChatGPT to help. I used one of these, like a really crappy image, and I was like, wow, I kind of like this. I didn't get much engagement, but I was like, I like this. I really like this. This feels good. It's something I wouldn't have done before. It makes me feel powerful. It makes me feel like the old Cory is like I'm throwing out the old Cory.
Mm.
Still love the old Cory, but it was like it felt like something that I was meant to be doing. It just kept posting and I kept posting. I was like, why don't I just do this every single day? And so, I haven't been really doing a great job at collecting the metrics, but people have started asking me to do podcasts. People have started asking me to do LinkedIn Lives. It was easy to build a WhatsApp community of individuals that are looking to build their audience online, business founders. So that started to happen. Booking meetings, people were coming to me and asking me about my strategy. So in terms of doing like discovery and speaking to founders, it's hard to keep up with all the inbound in terms of people wanting to learn. I haven't even done any outbound. I would say in that 3 months, there's been 40 discovery calls that have been booked with me because people wanted to learn about my process. I signed a contract with a business to do some consulting work because it made it a lot easier for me to reach out to them because I had this brand, and I don't know, I had some social proof attached with my name based on my follower count and all the activity and engagement on my account. So yeah, a lot of great things have been happening, and my hope is to do a better job at actually giving physical metrics or tracking everything. But it's clear to me to the value that it's been creating.
What are some of the challenges that you face? Like, what do you struggle with? What have you struggled with in the last 3 months with
Yeah.
embarking on this journey?
I think keeping up with it, right? It could be a full-time job and it can't, right? So, I wouldn't have time to do the other things in my life if I was to live online. I think that's been the biggest challenge, and automating it is not the answer. It's just finding a way to be authentic, find more conversations and more folks to start building relationships with. That's been the biggest challenge. Just staying on top of everything. It's not easy.
What about mindset wise? Like, are there days that you wake up and you're like, man, I just don't feel like posting today? Like, what are one or two mindset challenges that you've faced or that people might face in the journey?
Yeah, I think it's weird. I can be strange sometimes. It's like opposite, right? It's like I feel bad when I don't post now. So it's like if I have an event or my friends want me to do something and it's going to get in the way of my schedule, it kind of makes me feel like, I feel a little off. And I think so the challenge has been balancing my social life or balancing other things to keep up with what's been bringing me a lot of joy, which is creating content, posting. I'm not doing the numbers are vanity. So like my impressions, the metrics that a lot of folks focus on, those aren't everything for me. The most important thing and my most important takeaway and what is the personal growth. It's like I'm becoming a better writer. I'm becoming a better speaker. I'm taking more opportunities. So if you were to ask me 3 months ago to do this podcast, I would have told you no. Or I'd come up with some excuse the day of because my anxiety got in the way. So in terms of challenges, it's keeping up with everything. I keep up with it because of the positives it's had and how good it makes me feel.
Yeah. Another reflection, if I might offer you a reflection.
Please.
Awesome. Well, I hear commitment. Like 4 months ago, there was an old Cory that was ready to be shed. And the old Cory was the one, there are entrepreneurs that are like, oh, I don't want to be the face of the business, and I build behind the scenes. There's kind of a trepidation around being a public figure, which to an extent is necessary to build a business in certain stages of the business. And the business journey is interesting because it's like you have to almost be the public figure in the early stages of the business. And then as the business grows, you have to remove yourself as the public figure of the business, or make the business not so dependent on you as, you know, the business continues to grow. And so you have to find a way to this beautiful thing that you've created, which is like you are the face, you are the one magnetizing all the clients. You have to find some way to not be that anymore, like to shed the thing that made you successful. But for you, 4 months ago, the person that you used to be didn't want to be the person leading the charge. There was anxiety, there was maybe shyness, this sort of thing, humility, wanting to hide, like a hiding. And then 4 months ago, you were inspired by people who build in public, and you saw, you know, people creating community, and then you became committed. You were like, hold on a second, I want to do this, I'm going to do this. And your commitment is to the level. The reason why I say commitment is what's clear that you're committed is that you don't even want to do other things because it might get in the way of you, of your commitment. That's commitment. That's being so committed that you're willing to forego these other aspects of life to make sure that you can follow through with your commitment. That is absolute true commitment.
I hear that. You said it better than I could ever say it. Like, yeah, the building. I've been seeing this movement for a while, and I was getting down on myself because I knew it was what I needed to do, and I couldn't figure it out.
Mm.
And maybe I set the goals were too big, and I started super small. Comment every day, 5 posts, comment on 5 posts a day. And then, yeah, commitment. I think that's always something that I've been focused on. It's like when I'm going to do something, I'm going to give it my all. So, yeah, commitment has, I guess, gotten me here.
Yeah.
I don't want to do anything else.
It was interesting, the wins that you mentioned as well. So the wins that you mentioned are people have been booking calls with you. So your inbound is flying off the handle. That was, you know, the big win that I heard. People are seeking you out for, you know, your time, your knowledge. That these were pretty much the flavor of the wins. It wasn't about the numbers. It's not the fact that you get 200, 300 comments on posts, or, you know, you get 300 likes on your posts. You in fact said that you don't even care about those numbers, because anyone who goes to your LinkedIn is going to see that your LinkedIn is lit. Like, you get a ton of likes, you get a ton of comments. But for you, it doesn't matter. For you, it's relationship, community, connecting with people in the inbox, being able to give people this kind of sauce that you've learned. It was interesting hearing you mention the wins as well. You don't even know what your metrics are.
Exactly.
Like, you're like, I don't even care. The metrics for you are people reaching out to me? Are they seeking me out? Are they booking time? Am I getting to connect with people?
Exactly. I feel good. Like, if I wasn't feeling good every single day, something would be wrong, but I've never felt this good. And it's because every single day that I'm doing this stuff, it's such a challenge, but it's so much fun. Maybe other people might not see the fun in it, but yeah, I'm not selling anything. I think that's the one of the and I post about this, like, I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm trying to build meaningful connections and meaningful relationships with folks.
Hmm.
So,
What's the transition period going to look like, though, when you do start selling something? If you do start selling something?
will be a test.
Yeah.
We'll find
I'm
out.
curious.
I'm not too sure, but I don't want to be like I. s- eh, I don't want to be those individuals that it's like, pay me and then I'll tell you more. I'm going to continue to add value. That's my hypothesis. The more value I add, the more people will trust me. So my goal is build as much trust as I can, and so we'll see. Does trust equal customers? Does it equal clients? But we'll see if I transition.
Know, like, and trust. Those are the kind of three foundations of being able to not necessarily need to sell. Like, people coming to you as warm leads that want what you have to offer. You don't need to overcome objections. I don't know how much
Exactly.
sales stuff you've got into, but yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious to watch the journey. Yeah, so this has been a really great conversation. I've really taken a lot from it, and every time we talk, I'm always inspired to go crush it on LinkedIn. So, but I'm curious, last takeaways that you want to share, last thoughts that you want to leave people with.
Yeah, I think the most important is just start small. You are interesting. Don't let your mind tell you you're not interesting. Go out there and just start sharing your lessons, what you've learned. Go comment, go engage. But in terms of posting and building audience, I think that it's super important. But don't limit yourselves. And in terms of building a business, and if we're going back to selling a business, it's if you're going to sell, if you're going to raise money, if you're going to want to find customers, these relationships are going to make it that much easier. And so go out there and do it.
Awesome. Cory Blumenfeld, everyone, on SaaS Buyers Club this week. His contact information, his LinkedIn will be in the show notes below. Make sure you follow him. He's a LinkedIn celebrity, whether he thinks he is or
No, no,
not.
no. I'm a nobody.
Your post impressions say otherwise, my friend. Your visibility says otherwise. You are
Well,
a
thank you.
community leader. Let me actually put it that way. You are a leader of a community, and I'm glad to be a part of your community. Make sure that you connect with him. He's a gem. So his contact information, his email, his LinkedIn will be in the show notes below. Follow him on LinkedIn. And it's another episode of SaaS Buyers Club. Thanks for joining this week. And make sure you follow, like, subscribe, leave us a review if you got any value from this. Leave us some comments on the content in terms of what you took away from this episode. We always love hearing from the audience, love connecting with the audience, and thank you for joining. We'll see you next week.